What is up, YouTube? I'm Devon DaVinci, leader of the Renaissance crew, and you're watching DaVinci Reacts. Today we're going to be getting into another TierZoo video. This is Are Horns OP? Now, when it comes to OP features in animals, horns I would not say are necessarily OP. It depends on the animal itself. Some animals, if they're quick enough, because the thing with horns is they always appear on your head, so it always leaves your back vulnerable. Now, if you're an animal that can mitigate that weakness, then your horns will be OP. Or if you're an animal that has such high defense that it doesn't really bother you if something affects your rear end, then you're pretty much good. Like rhinoceroses will probably be okay given their situation. Elephants, even though they don't necessarily have horns, they have tusks. And again, it's another case of kind of being a tank, so you can kind of like handle attacks from the back, giving you enough time to turn around and like do some type of damage. Personally, I think the most OP skill in the meta, I guess you could say, is Venom. I think Venom is probably the biggest thing that I would consider to be OP, as well as flying. Venom and flying, to me, are top tier features that you want your build to have if you want to succeed in this meta. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this. I will have a link for TierZoo's channel at the end of the video. So the last 30 seconds, you'll see an icon pop up over here. If you click on it, it will take you to their channel. You can like, comment, subscribe, and all the other good stuff. I will also have a link for this video in the description box down below for those of you that want to watch it without me possibly pausing or talking over it. Or if you happen to be a reactor and you want to react to it yourself, that's the link that you would use. And let's jump into it. I will play through the full ads as well.
Players have a wide selection of equipment to choose from when speccing their character. Teeth, claws, stingers, spikes, each weapon has distinct advantages and disadvantages in combat. Some, like teeth, are better at dealing damage but offer less range and require the user take a significant risk committing to an attack attempt. Claws are a good middle ground, offering solid damage but allowing users to keep their vitals at least a little bit further away from counterattack range. On the other end of the spectrum is what I'd like to discuss in today's video: horns and antlers. This video was sponsored by
fuck that thing up.
Excluding things like projectiles, skull-based weapons have by far the furthest reach in the game. This makes them excellent defensive weapons, as it gives players a large threat range that an approaching player needs to find a way to get through in order to connect with their own attack. Against a player with powerful horns or large antlers, messing up your approach and getting counterattacked can spell disaster, since these attacks can deal devastating damage when they connect. However, actually connecting with a strike isn't always easy for players who spec into this trait. Since skull projections can be quite heavy and cumbersome, swinging them can be quite slow and risky in and of itself, because if the attack is dodged by an aggressive opponent, you might be left wide open to getting rushed down and taking a ton of damage. So
they gotta include that clip of the male lion that had I forgot which animal that had horns. I don't know if it was a wildebeest or what it was. It was charging them, and then it did like this like perfectly synced dodge and like counterattack right into its throat. I don't know if I'll be able to find the clip, but if I can, I'll put it in. But if not, then just be on the lookout for it. It's an awesome counterattack.
Today, I'd like to delve deeper into the advantages and disadvantages that come with equipping skull weapons to your character, and discuss some examples of good and bad usage of this perk. The two main types of skull weapons are horns and antlers. Horns are permanent and usually equipable to both sexes, whereas antlers are grown and shed each year, and usually a perk exclusive to male characters. Players in the Servid faction have exclusive access to antlers, while horns can be equipped to a wide variety of character types and have the major advantage of being permanent. Large antlers are useful for resource competition against other players, and occasionally to deter predators, but really their primary function is tied to the reproduction questline. Part of the Servid questline is that in order to complete the mating quest, male characters need to become party leader, and
I feel like when it comes to antlers, they're a little bit more vulnerable than horns. That's the reason why I would say horns are better, because even though breaking a horn is like will really cripple you in a sense, it is a lot harder to break. And I feel like they are more durable and you can do more with them.
In order to complete the mating
Whereas
quest,
antlers are just for
male
display.
characters need to become party leader.
Mostly
and
for
in order
display.
to achieve the rank of party leader, a servid must duel against other male servid characters and defeat them. Antlers allow these players to duel in a way that tests their strength while still remaining mostly non-lethal, as these players don't actually want to team kill their own party members. As far as combat abilities go, antlers probably aren't the most optimal choice. They weigh the user down quite a bit, make it more difficult to move through dense forest, and the enormous amount of energy it takes to shed and regrow them on a regular basis makes them a handicap rather than a perk. They don't have many secondary uses either. They can be used to dig with, but there's no upside to using antlers to dig rather than your feet. In short, antlers are a flex, the kind players can really only get away with when they're already doing quite well and have resources to spare. And even then, antler users tend to ditch the trait as soon as the window to complete the mating questline closes for the year. Horns, on the other hand, can be used to great effect against a wider variety of opponents. Large horns can deal devastating piercing damage and can also be used to inflict knockback, destabilizing even the most aggressive players and creating an opening for a deadly strike to connect. However, they're really only useful in 1v1 combat, since a group of attackers can easily overwhelm a horn user from multiple directions at once, and prevent them from connecting a strike. So it's important to balance your character with other traits like bulk or speed to help compensate for this weakness. Skull weapons were added to the game's equipment roster during the late Tetrapod expansion, possibly serving to facilitate party member recognition and later being co-opted for defensive purposes. While data miners are unsure whether early horn users like the Triceratops build had horn attacks as an integral part of their combat movesets, players in the current meta employ a wide variety of strategies to get the most out of their equipment. Tank builds like the Rhinoceros tend to use horns primarily for the knockback effect in 1v1 matchups, though they're capable of inflicting lethal piercing damage as well. More agile builds like the Wildebeest and Cape Buffalo coordinate team defenses against predators that employ both horn and kick attacks, and have a high critical hit ratio due to the sharpness of their horns. Some animals with skull weapons favor other types of attacks, using their long legs as the primary line of defense against predators, and mostly use their skull mods to fight against others of the same build type. As powerful and impressive as horns are, their overall contribution to the viability of a character is less than you might expect, especially in terms of how vital they are to a player's game plan for dealing with predator attacks. Most horn users spend a ton of evolution points on their base speed stat to avoid confrontation with more powerful players in the first place, meaning that heavy skull equipment actually impedes this strategy rather than synergizing with it. Horn attacks tend to be employed as a last resort with varying degrees of success, since their base accuracy is so low. Horns lose their value in combat if the player's head is immobilized, so to use this perk effectively, the build should have a high base stamina and access to a variety of other attacks that can counter a grappling opponent. Since most animals with horns and antlers defend themselves more effectively with their feet, there are plenty of examples of similar builds like zebras and camels that are equally viable without horns equipped at all. However, in builds like rhinos that spec into bulk instead of speed, horns are fundamental to their combat strategy, and viability suffers significantly if the horns are damaged. When equipping your character, it's important to consider both your own character stats and the types of attacks you're likely to encounter before you decide to spec into an expensive skull weapon. For example, if the primary threat in your server is a build from the Panthera faction, horns might not be the most optimal choice, since a big cat's primary objective is to land a critical strike on the opponent's neck, so you may be better off investing in more forceful kicks that can be used while keeping your head out of reach. But if the meta is more centralized around canine builds, front-facing weaponry may be the better option, since canines tend to target their prey's rear and get kills via bleed damage. The most viable horn users are well-rounded with respect to speed, bulk, and overall combat movesets, but most importantly, they spec their characters to be best equipped to counter the most dangerous threats in the current meta. Now, since the best insight into the metagame can be found in books, gaining the knowledge necessary to be properly equipped can be tough, especially if your character's eyesight or concentration stats aren't the best. But the good news is, in an effort to make eyesight a less overpowered ability, the devs have started introducing more benefits to players that spec into auditory abilities, one of which is the advent of the audiobook. Audiobooks are an amazing way to optimize your efficiency, allowing you to gain XP in another skill while also increasing your knowledge stat passively. Where can you get access to these overpowered gains? The answer is Audible, the sponsor of today's video. Audible has the world's largest selection of audiobooks, so no matter what you're interested in, there's something for you. I've been using Audible for years now, but my personal favorite from this year was Project Hail Mary, an awesome sci-fi adventure novel written by Andy Weir, the author of The Martian. Trust me, go in blind, it's well worth it. And lucky for you, Audible is having a holiday special right now, where new members can get 60% off their first 3 months. An Audible membership gets you access to one free title every single month, yours to keep forever. Start your membership today and save 60% on your first 3 months of membership, bringing the price down to less than $6 a month. Go to audible.com/TierZoo to get started. Thank you so much for watching, thanks especially to my patrons on Patreon, and I'll see y'all in the next video.
I actually didn't expect it to end right there. I thought that was like an ad in the middle of the video, but I mean, it just means that this was an interesting video. Now, again, you'd have to let me know what your opinion is. I mean, he agreed with me, and I don't think that there's really a debate about it. Horns are better than antlers. Like, antlers are more, like you said, for display and for mating and stuff like that, but horns are a viable defense and weapon. I mean, antlers can be used as weapons, but once you go against something that is on par with your antlers, you can't really do much outside of that. Like, it's too big of a risk of like breaking. And like I said, with the weight disadvantage, and a lot of times when you're dealing with something with antlers, you're talking about large antlers. Like, usually when stuff have antlers, they're big and take up a lot of space. It makes it harder to like maneuver through tight spaces and get caught on stuff. And it just seems like it just doesn't seem like a good investment for your evolutionary points. As I said, I've already talked about what I think the most OP thing is. If TierZoo is listening to this, which I doubt, but if for some miracle TierZoo happens to be watching this video, I would love to see him do a video about like a tier list of the top features. Not just a tier list of like an animal, but a tier list of features like tail weapons, poison, spikes, horns, teeth, claws, camouflage, fur. Like, I would like to see him do a tier list of all of the features that animals can have, and like which ones would be considered the S tiers, the A tiers, B tiers, C tiers, D tiers, F tiers. Like, I think that would make for a good video. So if anybody happens to see TierZoo, or anybody that knows TierZoo, feel free to throw that idea by them and see if they can that type of video would interest them. Now, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and share. I can't express enough how important hitting the like button is for the channel. It definitely helps out as far as favorability with the algorithm, as well as getting this video pushed out to many different recommended feeds. So to help expand the community, hit the like button. If you want to show support in some other form or fashion, you can always join my Patreon, where I'm uploading videos usually once a week. I do a weekly live stream that involves the community. So I'm doing video reactions with the community. I'm playing games with the community. This Saturday, I'm going to be playing Left 4 Dead 2 with a group of people. If you happen to be interested, all you need is Left 4 Dead 2 in your game and to be a Patreon, or Left 4 Dead 2 to be in your library and to be a Patreon supporter. And you can jump into the stream and we can play games together. I am also live streaming, during the week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. Today, as a matter of fact, should be a day that I'm live streaming. If you're watching this when it first comes out, I will be live streaming later on in the day. That is 4:30 p.m. I'll be playing Grand Theft Auto, the Definitive Edition. Well, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the Definitive Edition. I think I'm getting towards the end of the Los Venturas portion of the game, and about to go back to Los Santos for the last time. So the game is getting close to the end. If you want to come through and hang out with me, feel free to do that. I love seeing new people in the chat and engaging with new people that I've never, had a chance to talk to. So feel free to come through. Anyway, I'm Devon DaVinci. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to get ahead and give you the deuces, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Peace.